Daniel Clark rubbed his tired eyes and checked his watch. It was 3:15 a.m., and the night shift at the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico was always the longest. He reached for his lukewarm coffee and took a sip as he scanned the monitors. The radio telescope had been picking up the usual cosmic background noise until it wasn't. "That's odd," Daniel muttered, setting down his mug. The signals were changing. At first, he thought it was just equipment failure or some random interference. He had seen plenty of false alarms in his 15 years as lead astronomer. But this was different. The patterns emerged slowly at first. Simple mathematical sequences, then prime numbers, then more complex formulations that made his heart race. This wasn't random noise. This was deliberate communication. By sunrise, Daniel hadn't moved from his station. His colleagues arrived to find him surrounded by printouts, his eyes wide with disbelief. "I need to make a call," he told them, his voice shaking slightly. "And we need to verify these signals on every frequency we have." Within 48 hours, observatories around the world confirmed what Daniel had discovered. Earth was receiving a message from deep space, specifically from the direction of Tau Ceti, a sun-like star about 12 light-years away. In Washington, D.C., Lisa Martinez sat in stunned silence as the presentation concluded. As the newly appointed Secretary of Defense, she had expected challenges: North Korea, Russia, China, cybersecurity threats, not aliens. "And we're certain this isn't some elaborate hoax?" she asked, looking around the table at the assembled scientists and military officials. "Absolutely certain," replied Dr. Helen Ward from NASA. "The signals are coming from far beyond our solar system, and they contain mathematical concepts, imagery, and what appears to be language. Most importantly, they're responding to our own transmissions." Lisa nodded slowly. "What exactly are they saying?" Dr. Ward hesitated. "That's where things get concerning. The messages include detailed star maps, with coordinates, timestamps, and formations that our analysts believe are military in nature." The room fell silent. General Richard Peterson, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, leaned forward. "In other words," he said grimly, "they're not just saying hello. They're sending invasion plans." Over the next 72 hours, more information emerged as the world's best cryptographers and linguists worked around the clock. The beings called themselves the Tauran Empire, a vast coalition of 700 star systems that had existed for millennia. Their civilization had mastered faster than light travel centuries ago, and had been expanding steadily across this arm of the galaxy. Earth, it seemed, had come to their attention because of our increasing radio transmissions. The planet was also in an unfortunate location, at the edge of 3 disputed territories that the Taurans wished to secure. In a hastily arranged UN Security Council meeting, world leaders gathered to hear the latest findings. "Based on the transmissions we've decoded, the Tauran Empire doesn't consider us a significant civilization," said Susan Kim, the lead linguist on the international response team. "They've been watching us for decades. They know we have nuclear weapons but haven't developed space travel beyond our immediate vicinity. They know we're divided into nations that often conflict with each other." "And what do they want?" asked the British Prime Minister. Susan took a deep breath. "They want Earth. According to their imperial protocols, planets with strategic positions but without advanced spacefaring capabilities are subject to what they call clearance and repurposing." The French president's face paled. "Clearance, you mean?" "Yes," Susan replied simply. "They plan to remove us and use Earth for their own purposes." Lisa Martinez spoke up from the American delegation. "How long do we have?" "Based on the coordinates and time frames in their messages, we estimate their fleet will arrive in 14 days. Panic erupted across the globe as the news spread. Stock markets crashed. Religious leaders called for prayer. Doomsday preppers retreated to their bunkers. Riots broke out in major cities as people hoarded supplies or simply gave in to fear and rage. In the midst of the chaos, a different response was forming. At NASA's communications complex, Kevin Wright paced back and forth in the conference room. The former Marine had spent the last decade developing communication protocols for potential deep space missions. Now, Those theoretical exercises had become urgently practical. "We need to respond," he told his team. "But not the way they expect us to." "What do you mean?" asked Greg Foster, one of the senior engineers. "Think about it," Kevin said. "They've revealed their hand. They've told us they're coming to wipe us out. Why would they do that, unless they were absolutely certain we couldn't stop them?" "Because we can't," Greg replied. "Their technology is centuries beyond ours." "Maybe," Kevin admitted. "But they don't know everything about us. They see our divisions, our primitive space technology, but they don't understand humans." As Kevin's team worked on response scenarios, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Jack Porter, a quantum physicist at CERN in Switzerland, had been analyzing the transmission method the Taurans used. While their technology was far advanced, their approach revealed surprising gaps in their understanding of certain quantum phenomena. "It's like they took a different evolutionary path with their science," Jack explained over a secure video conference. "They're incredibly advanced in some areas, but they seem to have overlooked or dismissed theories that we've been developing for decades." Lisa Martinez, who had been coordinating the global response, seized on this information. "Can we use this against them?" "Not directly," Jack admitted. "We can't build weapons that would harm their fleet, but we might be able to show them something they don't expect, something that makes them reconsider whether we're as primitive as they think." As the Tauran fleet entered the outer edges of the solar system, humanity faced a stark choice: surrender and face extinction, attempt to fight with hopelessly outmatched weapons, or try something unprecedented. World leaders convened an emergency summit. Old enemies sat side by side, united by the imminent threat. The plan that emerged was audacious, desperate, and relied on the one advantage humans had always possessed: creativity born from diversity of thought. The decision was made. Earth would respond with a single unified message, and if they failed, it would be the last message humanity ever sent. The United Nations building in New York had never been so quiet despite being filled to capacity. Leaders from every nation sat shoulder to shoulder, their usual political differences set aside in the face of extinction. The Tauran fleet had passed Jupiter's orbit. In 10 days they would reach Earth. "We have one chance to change their minds," said Kevin Wright, standing before the assembly. His voice was steady, but his hands gripped the podium tightly. "Everything we know about the Taurans suggests they communicate not just through language, but through demonstrations of power." On the large screen behind him, images from the decoded Tauran messages appeared. They showed planets being transformed, stars being harnessed for energy, and vast fleets moving between worlds. "They're showing us what they can do," Kevin continued. "It's not just a threat, it's how they establish their place in their hierarchy. They expect us to either surrender or fight helplessly." Lisa Martinez stepped forward. "Which is why we're proposing something different. We won't beg. We won't make empty threats. We'll show them something they don't expect from a primitive species." In the back of the room, Susan Alvarez watched nervously. As the linguist who had helped decode much of the Tauran language, she understood better than most how the aliens thought. The Taurans were old, powerful, and set in their ways. Their empire had existed for thousands of years, expanding methodically across the stars. They didn't negotiate with lesser species. They simply took what they wanted. After the presentation, Susan approached Kevin and Lisa. "The plan might work," she said quietly, "but we need to make sure we're speaking their language correctly. A misunderstanding could doom us all." "That's why you're essential to this," Lisa replied. "You need to make sure they understand exactly what we're showing them." Meanwhile, at CERN in Switzerland, Jack Porter hadn't slept in days. The quantum physicist and his international team had been working around the clock, testing theories, and running simulations based on the Tauran communications technology. "It's incredible," he told his colleague Maria Diaz. "Their faster-than-light communications rely on quantum entanglement principles, but they've completely missed the Kowalski-Yen effect." Maria looked skeptical. "That's still theoretical, Jack. We haven't even proven it works yet." "But all our models show it should," Jack insisted. pointing to the equations filling the whiteboard. And if it does, we can use it to demonstrate something the Taurans haven't seen before. The Kowalski-Yen effect was a recent theory, suggesting that quantum-entangled particles could, under specific conditions, create a cascading energy conversion effect. Earth scientists had only proposed it 3 years ago, and no one had successfully tested it at large scale. But if it worked, it would allow for the controlled conversion of matter to energy without a nuclear chain reaction. Jack's phone rang. It was Lisa Martinez. "The UN has approved the plan," she said without preamble. "You have 7 days to make it work." Around the world, scientific facilities shifted to support the effort. NASA redirected satellite networks. Observatories recalibrated their equipment. Defense departments contributed computing power and specialized technology. Even private companies offered resources without hesitation. For the first time in human history, the entire scientific community worked as one. At the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Dr. Olivia Patel coordinated the global effort. As head of NASA's Deep Space Communications, she had the expertise needed to direct Earth's message to the approaching Tauran fleet. "We'll need to use Jupiter's moon Callisto as the demonstration target," she explained to her team. "It's uninhabited, visible to both us and the Tauran fleet, and has the right mineral composition for the effect to work." Greg Foster, who had been working with Kevin Wright on the communication aspects, looked concerned. "Can we really pull this off? We've never tested this theory at any significant scale." Olivia's expression was grim. "We have no choice. If we fail, we'll be no worse off than we already are." As scientists worked frantically, world governments tried to maintain order. Some people fled to remote areas. Others held continuous prayer, vigils. Many simply tried to spend their potential final days with loved ones. News channels provided constant updates on the approaching fleet, now visible through powerful telescopes as a cluster of lights moving inexorably toward Earth. 5 days before the fleet's arrival, protests erupted outside the UN. People demanded to know the plan, to understand what their leaders were doing to save humanity. Inside a secure facility beneath the New Mexico desert, Kevin Wright met with Susan Alvarez to finalize the communication that would accompany their demonstration. "The message needs to be simple but powerful," Susan said. "The Taurans value efficiency. They won't respect pleas or long explanations." Kevin nodded. "What about this? We have observed your approach. We have decoded your intentions. We offer this demonstration as recognition of your arrival. We await your response." Susan considered it. "That works. It acknowledges them without submission. It shows we understand them. And it puts the next move on them after they see what we can do." 3 days before the fleet's arrival, disaster struck. A critical satellite array in Kenya failed, threatening to reduce the power of the demonstration significantly. "We need that array," Olivia shouted over the video call to the
Kenyan facility.
"Without it, we lose 20% of our transmission strength." Samuel Omondi, the facility director, looked desperate. "We're trying everything, Dr. Patel. The main power coupling has completely burnt out." Lisa Martinez, who had been monitoring all aspects of the operation, made a quick decision. "The USS Gerald Ford carrier group is in the Indian Ocean. They have replacement parts that might work. I'm redirecting them now." In a daring operation, Navy helicopters delivered specialized equipment and engineers to the remote Kenyan facility. Working through the night, the combined team of military engineers and civilian scientists managed to restore the array with just 30 hours to spare. At CERN, Jack Porter finally allowed himself a moment of hope. The smaller-scale tests had worked. The theory was sound. If they could coordinate all of Earth's communication systems perfectly, their demonstration might just convince the Taurans that humans weren't as primitive as they appeared. "All systems are aligned," Olivia reported from Houston. "We're ready on your mark, Dr. Porter." Jack took a deep breath and looked at the countdown timer. 1 day remained before the Tauran fleet would reach Earth's orbit. Everything was in place. For humanity's one and only message. "Begin final preparations," he said. "We launch in 6 hours. The control room at NASA's Johnson Space Center buzzed with tense energy. Hundreds of screens displayed data from around the world as scientists and engineers made final adjustments to their systems. Dr. Olivia Patel moved between stations, checking readings and confirming that every element was ready. "Status report," she called out, her voice steady despite the pressure. "All satellite arrays aligned and functioning at 100%, reported Greg Foster. "CERN quantum initiators ready," came another voice. "Global power grid stable and delivering maximum output to key facilities," said a third. Olivia nodded and turned to the main screen, which showed a video feed from the Hubble Space Telescope. The Tauran fleet was clearly visible now. 12 massive ships arranged in a perfect formation, currently passing the orbit of Mars. Earth had less than 18 hours before they would arrive. In a secure room adjacent to the main control center, Kevin Wright and Susan Alvarez finalized the communication that would accompany their demonstration. "Translation verified," Susan said, looking up from her computer. "The message will be sent in their primary symbolic language, followed by mathematical confirmation sequences." Kevin checked his watch. "Are we sure about the timing? We need to send our message before they enter Jupiter's orbit." Dr. Porter confirmed it, Susan replied. "We need them to witness the effect from a distance where they can fully observe it, but close enough that they can't dismiss it as a natural phenomenon." At CERN in Switzerland, Jack Porter reviewed the final calculations with his team. The demonstration relied on precise calibration of every major observatory, satellite array, and radio telescope on Earth. All would focus their transmissions on a single point, a specific region of Callisto, Jupiter's second-largest moon. The cascade effect should be visible for approximately 8 minutes and 43 seconds, Jack explained to Lisa Martinez over a secure video link, which is exactly the time it takes light to travel from the Sun to Earth. "Is that significant?" Lisa asked. "To us, yes. To them, it will demonstrate that we understand principles of space-time and energy transfer that they thought were beyond us." Lisa nodded. "And you're certain this won't cause permanent damage to Callisto?" "The effect is temporary," Jack assured her. "We're not destroying anything, just creating a controlled energy conversion that will make the targeted area glow brighter than Jupiter itself for those 8 minutes and 43 seconds. What Jack didn't say was that this was their only shot. Earth didn't have the resources or time to try again if the demonstration failed. The calculations were sound, but they'd never tested the theory at this scale. This would be both their first test and their final exam. As the hour approached, world leaders gathered in emergency bunkers and civilians huddled around television screens. News networks broadcast continuous coverage of the approaching Tauran fleet, with experts offering theories about alien biology and technology. Religious leaders led prayers while some people threw end-of-the-world parties, determined to face whatever came with defiance. In orbit around Earth, astronauts aboard the International Space Station had the clearest view of the approaching ships. "They're massive," reported Commander Beth Rogers, peering through a telescope. "Each one looks to be at least 5 kilometers long. No visible weapon systems that we can identify, but there are structures that could be launch bays for smaller craft." 4 hours before the scheduled demonstration, a problem emerged at the Australian Array Station. "We're getting power fluctuations," reported Station Chief Alan Parker. "The recent solar flares are interfering with our calibration." Olivia Patel immediately redirected resources. "Compensate using the backup arrays in New Zealand and Chile. We can't delay." Around the world, ordinary people found ways to contribute. In small towns and villages without sophisticated equipment, citizens turned off lights and non-essential electronics to reduce power demand on electrical grids, ensuring maximum energy for the critical arrays. In larger cities, universities loaned computing power, and private companies offered satellite access. With 1 hour remaining, Jack Porter arrived at Johnson Space Center, having taken a military jet from Switzerland. His face was pale from exhaustion, but his eyes were focused as he joined Olivia at the main control station. "Everything is aligned," she told him. "We're as ready as we'll ever be." Jack nodded and turned to Kevin Wright, who had just entered, with Susan Alvarez. "The preliminary message sent 15 minutes ago," Kevin confirmed. We told them exactly what we planned, that we've observed their approach, understand their intentions, and are offering a demonstration as recognition of their arrival. Any response? Jack asked. Susan shook her head. Nothing direct, but their course hasn't changed. They received it. Lisa Martinez joined them, having arrived from the Pentagon. As the highest-ranking government official present, she would give the final authorization. The President and Security Council have given the green light, she said. It's your show now. Jack took a deep breath and turned to Olivia. Begin the sequence. Olivia nodded and spoke into her headset. All stations, this is Control. Initiate synchronization protocols. Countdown begins now, T-minus 10 minutes. Around the world, operators at observatories, satellite arrays, and radio telescopes confirmed their readiness. Power plants diverted maximum energy to the effort. At CERN, the specialized quantum initiators that Jack had developed began powering up. T-minus 5 minutes, called Olivia. On screens throughout the control room, images of Callisto appeared from different observatories. The targeted region was a flat plain near the moon's equator, chosen for its high concentration of elements that would respond best to the energy conversion process. T-minus 1 minute. The room fell silent. Jack Porter closed his eyes briefly, silently checking his calculations one last time. T-minus 30 seconds. 20, 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Initiate. At that moment, every major observatory, satellite array, and radio telescope on Earth focused their transmissions on the same point on Callisto's surface. The signals were precisely calibrated to trigger the Kowalski-Yen effect, a cascading, quantum reaction that would temporarily convert a small portion of the moon's matter into pure energy. For several tense seconds, nothing happened. Then on the observation screens, a small bright spot appeared on Callisto's surface. It grew rapidly, becoming a brilliant white light that outshone Jupiter itself. Energy conversion confirmed, shouted one of the technicians. It's working. The targeted area of Callisto glowed with impossible brightness, the result of matter being temporarily converted to energy through quantum manipulation rather than nuclear fusion or fission. The light pulsed in a precise pattern, demonstrating that this was no accident but a controlled, deliberate effect. In the control room, people began to cheer. On screen showing the Toran fleet, the massive ships had come to a complete stop. 8 minutes and 43 seconds, Jack whispered, watching the timer count down. Every second is crucial. The demonstration continued, the brilliant light maintaining its exact intensity and pattern. When the timer reached 0, the light faded smoothly, leaving Callisto's surface unchanged, exactly as Jack had predicted. Susan Alvarez's console beeped. We're receiving a transmission from the Toran fleet, she announced, her voice shaking slightly. The room fell silent again as everyone turned to the main screen. What are they saying? Lisa asked. Susan studied the incoming signal, her fingers flying over her keyboard as translation algorithms processed the alien language. They're requesting direct communication, she said finally, looking up with wide eyes. They want to talk. For 3 days, the Toran fleet remained stationed at the orbit of Mars. On Earth, military forces stayed on high alert, but the expected attack never came. Instead, a series of messages arrived, translated painstakingly by Susan Alvarez and her team of linguists. They want to meet us, Susan explained to the emergency council gathered in the Pentagon's largest conference room. A delegation of 5 humans aboard their command ship. Lisa Martinez frowned. Is this a trap? They could be planning to capture our representatives to study before their attack. Kevin Wright shook his head. I don't think so. Their language suggests genuine surprise. The demonstration changed something in their assessment of us. Jack Porter nodded in agreement. They specifically mentioned our energy conversion capabilities in their message. The demonstration worked exactly as we hoped. It showed them technology they didn't expect from us. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. Meeting the aliens would be dangerous, but refusing might trigger the very invasion they had worked so hard to prevent. President Eleanor Ross, who had been listening silently, finally spoke. Who would go? If we agree to this meeting, we need our best people. After hours of debate, 5 representatives were chosen. Lisa Martinez for political authority, Kevin Wright for military insight, Susan Alvarez for communication, Jack Porter for scientific knowledge, and Dr. Olivia Patel to represent Earth's technological capabilities. 2 days later, a small Tauran vessel detached from the main fleet and entered Earth's orbit. It hovered above the Atlantic Ocean, maintaining a stable position as it sent landing coordinates to NASA. At Kennedy Space Center in Florida, the 5 representatives prepared to board a modified space shuttle. The craft had been quickly outfitted, with additional life support systems and communication equipment for the journey. Remember, President Ross told them before they departed, you represent not just America but all of humanity. Our survival depends on what happens in this meeting. The shuttle launch was broadcast worldwide. Streets emptied as people gathered, around televisions and computer screens, watching the small human craft rise toward the waiting alien vessel. For many, it was a moment of both terrible fear and cautious hope. Inside the shuttle, the 5 representatives sat in tense silence as the pilot navigated toward the Tauran ship. Through the windows, they could see the alien vessel growing larger, a sleek silvery craft that seemed to shimmer slightly, as if its surface wasn't entirely solid. "My God," whispered Olivia as they approached. "Their hull material, it's like nothing we've ever seen." As the shuttle neared, a section of the alien ship opened, revealing a docking bay large enough to accommodate their craft. The pilot carefully maneuvered inside, and with a soft thud, they landed within the Tauran vessel. "Atmosphere analysis complete," reported the pilot, checking his instruments. "Oxygen levels compatible with human breathing, but slightly higher. Nitrogen content. The suits should filter it properly." The 5 representatives donned their specialized spacesuits, designed to protect them from potential biological contamination while allowing for movement and communication. Then, with Kevin Wright leading the way, they exited the shuttle. The docking bay was brightly lit, with walls that seemed to glow from within. The floor was solid, but had a slight give to it, almost like walking on firm moss. There was no sign of the Taurans. "Hello?" Kevin called out, his voice sounding strange through the suit's speakers. "We are the representatives of Earth." A section of the wall shimmered and then parted, revealing a corridor. The humans exchanged glances, then followed the implied invitation. The corridor led to a large circular room with a raised platform in the center. As they entered, 3 figures emerged from recessed areas around the room. The Taurans. Susan gasped softly. The aliens were tall, nearly 7 feet, with slender bodies that seemed partly biological and partly mechanical. Their skin was a pale blue-gray, with intricate patterns that pulsed with subtle light. Where human eyes would be, they had wide, multifaceted orbs that shifted color as they moved. What appeared to be mechanical components were seamlessly integrated with their organic forms, particularly around their chests and along their arms. One of the Taurans stepped forward, raising a hand in what might have been a greeting. A small device on its chest lit up, and a voice emerged, not from the alien's body but from the device itself. "Earth delegation," the translated voice said, the words slightly stilted but clear. "You have been brought here to explain inconsistencies." "Lisa," Martinez stepped forward. "We are honored by this opportunity for dialogue. What inconsistencies do you wish us to address?" The Tauran made a fluid gesture with its long fingers. "Your civilization uses primitive combustion engines. You have not colonized your solar system. Your communications technology is basic, yet you demonstrated matter-energy conversion capabilities beyond your apparent development stage. Explain." Jack Porter glanced at his colleagues before responding. "The technology we demonstrated is based on principles that our scientists have only recently begun to understand. What you witnessed was, truthfully, our first full-scale test of the theory." The 3 Taurans conferred with each other, their bodies pulsing with changing light patterns. The lead alien turned back to the humans. "Impossible. Such capabilities require centuries of quantum manipulation experience." "Not necessarily," Olivia interjected. Our approach to quantum physics took a different path than what we've observed in your communications. We discovered what we call the Kowalski-Yen effect, which allows for matter-energy conversion through quantum entanglement rather than traditional fusion or fission. The Tauran's light patterns pulsed rapidly. Show evidence of this theory. Jack removed a tablet computer from a sealed pocket in his suit and activated it. On the screen appeared a series of complex equations and diagrams illustrating the principles behind their demonstration. The lead Tauran took the device, studying it with its color-shifting eyes. The other two aliens moved closer, their bodies pulsing with what might have been excitement or concern. After several minutes, the lead Tauran returned the tablet. Your mathematics is unexpected, different approach, innovative pathway. Kevin Wright decided to take a risk. We understand that you came to our world with certain expectations about our capabilities. We hoped our demonstration would show that humans might have value beyond what you initially assessed. The Tauran's translator device was silent for nearly a minute before responding. Your species has existed for a brief time. Your technology is inconsistent. Some primitive, some surprising. Susan stepped forward. May I ask a question? When the Tauran made a gesture that seemed like assent, she continued. Your initial communication suggested plans to clear our planet for your use. Has our demonstration changed that intention? Theo, 3 Taurans conferred again, their light patterns shifting rapidly. Finally, the lead alien turned back to the humans. Your demonstration requires reassessment of Earth's status. Your species' approach to physics differs from imperial standard. This has value. Lisa Martinez felt a flutter of hope. Value enough to spare our world? The Tauran's next response sent a chill through the human delegation. That decision requires higher authority. You will remain here while Imperial Command is consulted. One of your number must return to Earth to inform your leaders. The 5 humans exchanged alarmed glances. 4 of them would be kept as what amounted to hostages, while the 5th returned with the news. How long will this consultation take? Lisa asked carefully. Imperial Command vessel is 3 light cycles distant, approximately 72 of your hours. Kevin Wright stepped forward. I volunteer to remain. Lisa should return to brief our leaders. I'll stay too, said Jack quickly. They'll need me to explain the scientific principles if there are questions. Susan and Olivia also volunteered without hesitation. The decision was made. Lisa would return to Earth while the others remained aboard the Tauran vessel. As Lisa prepared to depart, Kevin pulled her aside. Tell them we've made progress, but nothing is certain yet. And Lisa, thank you for your courage through all of this. She nodded grimly. Keep them talking. The longer they're willing to communicate, the better our chances. Lisa boarded the shuttle alone, looking back at her 4 colleagues standing beside the towering aliens. As the shuttle detached from the Tauran vessel, she couldn't help wondering if she would ever see them again. 3 days passed agonizingly slowly for those on Earth. Lisa Martinez had returned with news of the 4 delegates remaining on the Tauran vessel, while the aliens consulted their higher command. Military forces remained on high alert. Religious leaders led continuous prayers. Scientists worked frantically to refine their understanding of the quantum principles that had earned humanity this reprieve, hoping to strengthen their position if negotiations continued. Aboard the Tauran vessel, Kevin Wright, Susan Alvarez, Jack Porter, and Olivia Patel were treated not as prisoners, but as representatives of an unexpectedly interesting species. They were given comfortable quarters and allowed to move freely within a designated section of the ship, always accompanied by at least 1 Tauran observer. On the 3rd day, they were summoned to a large chamber they hadn't seen before. This room featured a massive screen that curved around one wall, currently displaying stars and distant nebulae. The lead Tauran, whom they now knew as Command Specialist Azir Tech, entered with 2 others. One was familiar, a science officer who had spent hours questioning Jack and Olivia about human physics theories. The other was new, with more elaborate mechanical components and light patterns that pulsed with greater intensity. Representatives, Of Earth, a Xertex translation device announced. The Imperial Command Vessel has arrived. Senior Commander Venshalir will address you directly. The screen flickered, and the star field was replaced by the image of another Tauran. This one was taller, with elaborate mechanical enhancements and skin patterns that glowed with deep purple and blue lights. When it spoke, the voice from the translation device was deeper, more resonant. I am Senior Commander Venshalir, 3rd, Circle Authority of the Tauran Imperial Fleet. Your world has created an unexpected situation. Kevin stepped forward. We appreciate your willingness to communicate with us, Senior Commander. We hope to find a solution that benefits both our civilizations. The Senior Commander's light patterns shifted. For 7,000 years, the Tauran Empire has expanded across this galactic sector. We have encountered 217 distinct species. Never have we found one like yours. Jack and Olivia exchanged glances. Susan leaned forward slightly, focused on every nuance of the translation. Explain your meaning, please, Kevin asked carefully. Your species appears technologically primitive by Imperial standards. You are divided into competing territorial units. You have barely explored your own solar system, yet you possess theoretical understanding that contradicts this assessment. Olivia spoke up. If I may, Senior Commander, human scientific development has been uneven. We focus intensely on certain areas while neglecting others. Our theoretical physics has advanced rapidly in recent decades, while our space travel technology has progressed more slowly. The Senior Commander's lights pulsed rapidly. This pattern is unknown in our experience. All other species develop technology in predictable sequences. Space travel before advanced quantum theory. Energy mastery before matter conversion. Jack. Porter saw an opening. That's precisely what makes our species potentially valuable to yours, Senior Commander. We think differently. Our scientific development follows paths you haven't encountered before. There was a long pause as the Senior Commander appeared to consider this. Finally, it responded. Science Officer Kel Temvor has analyzed your demonstration and the principles behind it. The Kowalski-Yen effect you described suggests approaches to quantum mechanics that Imperial science has not explored. This has potential value. Hope flickered in the human delegates' hearts, but they remained cautious. Does this mean you're reconsidering your plans for Earth? Kevin asked directly. Another long pause followed. The Senior Commander's light patterns shifted to colors they hadn't seen before, deep greens and golds. The original assessment of Earth was as a Class 3 resource world in a strategic location. Such worlds are typically cleared and repurposed for Imperial use. Susan felt her heart sink, but the alien continued. However, your demonstration has led to a new classification possibility. Your species appears to possess what we term divergent cognition, thought patterns that develop along different pathways than Imperial standard. And this is valuable to you? Kevin pressed. Potentially. The Empire has existed for millennia. Our technological advancement has plateaued in recent centuries. Your species' approach to quantum theory suggests avenues we have not explored. The 4 humans hardly dared to breathe as they waited for the Senior Commander to continue. Have authorized a change in Earth's classification from Resource World to Divergent Cognition Reserve. Your planet will not be cleared. Instead, we will establish a small observation post in your solar system to study your scientific development and exchange information. Relief flooded through the human delegates. Kevin struggled to maintain his composure as he responded. Thank you, Senior Commander. We welcome the opportunity for peaceful exchange of knowledge. The Senior Commander's next words tempered their relief. Understand this clearly. This designation is provisional. If your species proves hostile to Imperial interests or fails to demonstrate continued value through scientific innovation, the original clearance order may be reinstated. We understand, Kevin replied carefully. May I ask what form this observation post will take? A research station will be established on your moon. A small delegation of Imperial scientists will maintain presence there. They will request periodic meetings with your scientists for knowledge exchange. Susan Alvarez stepped forward. Our world is still divided into many nations with different governments. Who should your delegation communicate with? This is an internal matter for your species to resolve, the senior commander replied. We will communicate with whoever you designate as your representatives. You have 30 days to establish this protocol before our arrival at the lunar site. With that, the screen returned to its starfield display, and the senior commander's audience was over. The 4 human delegates were escorted back to their quarters, where they found their belongings packed and ready. You will return to Earth. Now, Azir-Tech informed them. A vessel has been prepared to transport you. As they prepared to depart, Jack turned to the Tauran. May I ask a personal question? The alien's light pattern shifted in what might have been curiosity. You may. What made you hesitate? Why didn't you simply proceed with your original plan? Azir-Tech was silent for a moment before responding. The Empire has existed for 7,000 years by following strict protocols. Yet in that time, true innovation has become increasingly rare. Your demonstration suggested something we had not considered, that unpredictable development paths might yield valuable results. The return journey to Earth was quick and smooth in the advanced Tauran shuttle. As they descended through the atmosphere, Kevin gazed out at the blue planet below. We got incredibly lucky, he said quietly. Our bluff worked because what we showed them was genuinely new to them. Susan nodded. Not just new technology, but a new way of thinking. That's what truly surprised them. When they landed at Kennedy Space Center, they were greeted as heroes. Lisa Martinez stood with President Ross and a crowd of officials, all anxious to hear the outcome. Kevin stepped forward to deliver the news that Earth had been spared, at least for now. Later that evening, as the 4 delegates were finally able to rest after days of debriefing, Olivia found Jack sitting alone, staring at the stars. What are you thinking about? She asked, joining him. About how close we came to extinction, he replied. And about the future. We've bought ourselves time, but the Taurans made it clear this is a probationary period. We need to prove our value. Olivia smiled. Then we'd better get back to work. We have a lot to learn, and apparently we have a lot to teach them too. Jack nodded, looking up at the night sky where, invisible to the naked eye, the Tauran fleet was already beginning its departure, leaving behind only a small contingent headed for the moon. They came expecting to find a primitive world to conquer, he said quietly. Instead, they found something they never expected. What's that? Asked Olivia. A mirror that showed them what they'd lost. Creativity, innovation, new ways of thinking. And maybe, just maybe, a glimpse of what they could become again. The Galactic Empire had targeted Earth, but humanity's message had indeed left them stunned, not with weapons or technology, but with the reminder that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe is simply a different way of looking at it.